Every morning, before the sun even touched the sky, a man stepped out of his small, worn-down house. His shoes were old, the road was long, and the destination was always the same, but he walked slow, steady, and silent. 20 miles. Every single day. People saw him pass by highways, empty fields, and quiet streets. No one knew his name. No one knew his purpose. To them, he was just a man walking endlessly. But behind this silent journey lay a truth no one could have imagined. He was known simply as the Walking Man. For years, the residents of a small town watched him. Rain or shine, heat or cold, he was a constant, a human landmark on their daily commutes. They'd see him, a silhouette against the rising sun, his pace never changing. The sight became so familiar that it almost blended into the background of their lives. A local newspaper even ran a short piece on him, a human interest story with no real interest because there were no answers. Who was he? Where was he going? Why did he walk with such unwavering determination? The mystery only deepened over time. Some whispered he was doing penance for a past crime. Others believed he was a man who had lost his mind after a great tragedy. Kids made up stories, painting him as a ghost, forever bound to walk the earth. These tales, though imaginative, were just that, tales. No one ever stopped to ask. Perhaps they were afraid to break the spell, to disturb the quiet resolve they saw in his eyes. Or maybe, deep down, they respected his privacy. This silent pilgrimage he undertook each day. His journey was his own, and the town, without realizing it, had become the silent audience to his one-man play. Then, one sweltering summer afternoon, a young woman named Sarah was driving home when she saw him. Not on his usual route, but sitting on a bench by the side of the road, head in his hands. It was the first time anyone had seen him stop. Her car slowed, and a wave of concern washed over her. Something was wrong. Breaking the unspoken rule of the town, she pulled over. As she approached, she saw that his old shoes were completely falling apart. The sole of one was hanging on by a thread. He looked up, his face etched with exhaustion and something else. Defeat. Sarah, a kind soul who worked as a waitress at the local diner, simply asked, "Are you okay, sir?" The man looked at her, his eyes weary but clear. He introduced himself as John. His voice was raspy from disuse. He told her his story, and it was nothing like the town's wild speculations. It was a story of love, loss, and a promise. 20 years ago, his wife had passed away. They had shared a life filled with simple joys, the greatest of which were their daily walks together. It was their time to talk, to dream, to just be with one another. On her last day, she made him promise one thing, that he would never stop walking. "Keep walking for both of us, John," she had whispered. "Walk until you've seen enough beauty for a lifetime." And so he did. His 20-mile route wasn't random. It was a carefully mapped journey that passed by all their special places. The park where he proposed, the old oak tree where they carved their initials, the bridge where they shared their first kiss. Each step was a memory. Each mile was a tribute. He wasn't walking towards a destination. He was walking through his life with her, over and over again. He wasn't just walking, he was loving. Sarah was moved to tears. The man everyone saw as a mystery was actually a living love letter. She offered him a ride, but he politely declined. "The walk is the promise," he said softly. But he did accept her offer for a new pair of shoes. She drove to the nearest store and bought him the sturdiest, most comfortable walking shoes she could find. When she returned, he was still there. He put them on, and the look of relief on his face was profound. He thanked her, his voice thick with emotion, stood up, and with a renewed strength, he continued his journey. The next day, Sarah shared the story with her customers at the diner. It spread through the town like wildfire. The mystery was solved, but what replaced it was something far more powerful: empathy and admiration. The Walking Man was no longer a spectacle. He was John, a symbol of enduring love. People started leaving bottles of water along his route. A local bakery would leave a fresh pastry on a specific fence post he passed each morning. A small, anonymous fund was started at the diner to ensure he always had good shoes and warm clothes for the winter. The town's relationship with John transformed. They no longer just saw him, they supported him. Their waves were no longer just curious gestures but signs of respect. They were no longer just an audience. They were his quiet companions. John noticed the changes. He would nod back, a small smile sometimes gracing his lips. He never broke his stride, never stopped for a conversation. But the connection was there, an unspoken bond between him and the community that had finally understood his heart. He was still the Walking Man, but now, he didn't walk alone. He carried the memory of his wife in his heart, and the quiet support of an entire town at his back. His daily 20 miles became a shared ritual, a testament to the fact that the greatest journeys are often the ones we take for love, and that sometimes the most profound stories are walking right past us, just waiting for someone to stop and ask, "Are you okay?" John's journey taught the town that behind every stranger, there's a story, and a little bit of compassion can change everything. It's a reminder for all of us to look a little closer, to listen a little harder, because you never know what beautiful truth you might find. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the human spirit. Until next time, take care. Have you ever seen him? that solitary figure on the side of the road, a silhouette against the endless asphalt ribbon. He never looks up at the cars rushing past him, not even a glance. He never waves, never puts out a thumb, never asks anyone for a ride. It's as if the world on wheels is invisible to him, a different dimension he doesn't belong to. His clothes, they tell a story of their own, frayed and faded, carrying the weight of years and the harshness of weather. You can see the dust of 1,000 miles baked into the fabric, the faint lines where rain has run down his back time and time again. People in the small towns he passes through, they talk, they gather in diners over lukewarm coffee and whisper stories. Maybe he's running from something, one might say, picturing a dark past nipping at his heels. Maybe he's lost, another will suggest, their voice filled with a mix of pity and curiosity. A lost love, a forgotten home, a mind that has wandered away from itself. Some even spin tales of him being a ghost, a restless spirit doomed to walk the highways for eternity. But for all the whispers and all the stories, no one ever dares to approach him. No one dares to ask. There's an invisible wall around him, a quiet dignity that commands distance. It's a look in his eyes, even when you only catch it for a second. A look that's not empty, but full of a purpose that no one else can understand. He walks as if time doesn't matter. The sun beats down, the rain soaks him to the bone, the wind howls, it's all the same to him. He just keeps moving, one foot in front of the other, a steady rhythmic pace that eats up the miles. He walks as if pain doesn't matter. You can see the weariness in his posture, the slight limp that develops by the end of the day, but his expression never changes. It's a mask of stoic resolve. He walks as if the miles themselves are nothing more than numbers, just ticks on a cosmic clock that only he can read. But for him, those miles, those numbers, they are everything. They are a promise, they are a penance, they are a prayer. Only he knows why they matter more than anything in the world. And so he walks on, his journey etched onto the landscape, a silent, moving monument to a story that may never be told. Let's rewind. Let's go back to the beginning of this journey. His name was Arthur, and he wasn't running from something. He was walking asterisk to asterisk something, or rather, to someone. Her name was Eleanor. They had met 50 years ago, on a dusty roadside just like this one. He was a young man with a broken-down car and a heart full of dreams. She was a young woman with a sketchbook and a smile that could outshine the sun. They fell in love under the vast, open sky, their futures stretching out before them like the highway itself. They promised each other that day, right there on the shoulder of the road, that if they ever got separated, for any reason, they would meet back at that exact spot on their 50th anniversary. Life happened, as it always does. They built a home, raised a family, and navigated the twists and turns of a shared existence. The years were kind, mostly, but then, a shadow fell. Alzheimer's. It came for Eleanor slowly at first, stealing little memories, like a thief in the night. Names, dates, faces. Soon, she couldn't remember Arthur. She would look at him with a polite confusion that broke his heart into a million pieces every single day. The doctors said there was nothing to be done. He was moved into a care facility, a place with clean walls and kind nurses, but it wasn't home. It wasn't with him. One day, Arthur was looking through an old photo album and found a picture of them from that first day. The roadside, the broken-down car, her brilliant smile. And he remembered the promise. Their 50th anniversary was just 3 months away. A wild, desperate, beautiful idea took root in his heart. The doctors said her long-term memory might still be there, buried deep. What if he could trigger it? What if he could recreate that day? He couldn't drive anymore, and he didn't have much money. But he had his feet. He had his promise. So he started walking. He sold what little he had, packed a small bag, and set out from his home in Oregon, heading for that dusty stretch of road in rural Nevada. It was over 1,000 miles away. People thought he was crazy. His own children tried to stop him. "Dad, this won't bring her back," they pleaded. But Arthur wasn't trying to bring her back from the disease. He was trying to find her, the real her, just one more time. Every step he took was a memory. The first mile was their first date. The 10th was their wedding day. The 100th was the birth of their first child. He walked through scorching deserts, remembering their summer vacations. He walked through freezing mountain passes, remembering the winters they spent huddled by the fire. The pain in his joints was nothing compared to the pain in his heart, and the determination to see her again was the fuel that kept him going. He wasn't just walking across states. He was walking through the landscape of their life together. He didn't want to ride because a car would be too fast. He needed to feel every mile. He needed to earn it. Each sunrise was a new page in their story. Each sunset a chapter closed. The people who saw him saw a lost old man, but he wasn't lost. For the first time since Eleanor had forgotten him, he knew exactly where he was going. He was walking back to the beginning. Finally, the day arrived. Their 50th anniversary. He was weathered, exhausted, and thinner than he'd ever been, but he stood on the exact spot where they had met. He waited. The sun climbed high in the sky. Cars whizzed by. He just stood there, his heart a drum beating, a rhythm of hope and fear. And then, a car pulled over. His son stepped out, and from the passenger side, he gently helped an old woman. It was Eleanor. His children, moved by his incredible journey, had decided to honor his wish. They brought her to him. She looked at the dusty roadside, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. Then she looked at Arthur. She looked at his worn clothes, his tired face, and the unwavering love in his gaze. For a moment, there was nothing. The world held its breath. And then, a tiny fragile smile touched her lips. She reached out a hand and whispered a single word, "Arthur." It was a question, a memory, and a miracle all at once. In that single word, on that dusty roadside, 1,000 miles of pain and a lifetime of love found their meaning. His journey was complete. He had walked back through time and found his way home. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe for more. In the quiet hum of our town, where life usually flowed like a gentle, predictable stream, a new current began to stir. It started subtly, a whisper on the wind, a shared glance between neighbors. It centered around an old man, someone we'd all seen but never truly noticed until now. His name was Arthur, though we only learned that later. For weeks, he was just the old man with the bag. His routine was as precise as a clockmaker's craft. Every single day, just as the sun reached its midday peak, his familiar, slightly stooped figure would appear at the edge of town. He walked with a slow, deliberate pace, his gaze often fixed on the ground ahead, as if tracing an invisible map only he could see. After a few weeks, people began noticing the patterns, the unchangeable waypoints of his daily journey. He always, without fail, crossed the old stone bridge that arched over Miller's Creek. He'd reach the center, pause for a moment, and look down at the water, his expression unreadable. Then, he'd continue on his way. His path always led him to the town square, but he never stopped at the bustling market or the chatty cafes. Instead, he made his way to a solitary bench beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient oak tree. It was his spot. He would sit there, always for the same amount of time, long enough for a rest, but not long enough to seem idle. And throughout this entire journey, from the moment he appeared to the moment he sat, he clutched a small, brown paper bag in his hand. This bag became the town's greatest mystery. It wasn't a grocery bag. It was too small for that. It was always neatly folded at the top, and he held it with a strange mix of care and protection, as if it contained something impossibly fragile or immensely valuable. He never once opened it in public. He never set it down. It was an extension of his hand, a silent companion on his daily pilgrimage. Naturally, the rumors started. Speculation is the favorite pastime of a quiet town, and Arthur's bag was the perfect fuel. Mrs. Gable from the bakery was convinced it held a special sandwich, perhaps a recipe from a long-lost love. Young Tim, who delivered newspapers, swore he saw the corner of a $100 bill peeking out one day, spinning a tale that Arthur was a secret millionaire, carrying his daily allowance. Others, the more romantic souls, believed the bag held memories. Old photographs, a faded letter, a dried flower, tokens of a life we knew nothing about. The theories grew wilder with each passing day. Was he a retired spy, carrying classified documents? Was he a magician, holding the secrets to his tricks? The little paper bag was no longer just a bag. It was a vessel for all our collective imagination, our curiosity, and our desire for a story. I was just as intrigued as everyone else. I'm a writer, a storyteller by trade, and this mystery was a plot I couldn't ignore. So, one Tuesday afternoon, I decided to do what no one else had dared to. I decided to follow him. Not in a creepy way, but with a journalist's curiosity. I wanted to see where his journey ended. I kept a respectful distance, watching as he completed his familiar ritual. The walk, the bridge, the pause, the bench under the old oak. He sat, as always, clutching the bag. I found a spot on a bench across the square, pretending to read a book, but my eyes were fixed on him. After his usual rest, he stood up and continued his walk, heading toward the quieter, residential part of town. This was new territory. He turned down a lane I rarely walked, one lined with older, smaller houses. He stopped in front of one in particular. It was neat and tidy, with a small garden in the front, blooming with vibrant, colorful flowers. He walked up the path, pulled a key from his pocket, and let himself in. The mystery, it seemed, had led him home. I felt a little disappointed. Was that it? Was the secret of the bag locked away behind that door, never to be known? I almost turned to leave, but something made me wait. A few minutes later, the front door opened again. But it wasn't Arthur who came out. It was a woman. She looked to be about his age, with kind eyes and hair as white as snow. And in her hand, she held the very same brown paper bag. She walked down the path, not toward the town square, but in the opposite direction, toward the woods at the edge of town. Now, my curiosity was reignited. This wasn't the end of the story. It was a new chapter. I followed again, my heart pounding a little faster. The mystery had doubled. Why did he bring the bag home, only for her to take it somewhere else? She walked with a lighter step than Arthur, her journey taking her to a well-worn trail leading into the forest. The path was beautiful, dappled with sunlight filtering through the canopy of leaves. It felt like walking into a fairy tale. The trail ended at a small, sunlit clearing, and in the center of that clearing was a single, simple wooden bench, facing a cluster of wildflowers. She sat on the bench, and for the first time, I saw someone open the mysterious paper bag. My breath caught in my throat. I was about to learn the truth that had captivated our entire town. What would it be? Money? A priceless jewel? A secret map? She reached into the bag with delicate fingers and she pulled out breadcrumbs. Just simple, ordinary breadcrumbs. My mind reeled. All this secrecy, all this ritual, for breadcrumbs. But then, I saw it. As she scattered the crumbs on the ground in front of her, the air filled with a soft, gentle fluttering. Dozens of small birds, finches, sparrows, and robins, descended from the trees. They flocked around her, landing on the ground, on the bench, and even on her outstretched hand. She wasn't just feeding them, she was with them. She smiled, a pure, radiant smile, and began to speak to them in a soft, cooing voice. Suddenly, it all clicked into place, but not in the way I expected. I walked back toward the town, my mind piecing together the story. Arthur and his wife, I assumed she was his wife, had created a perfect system. His daily walk wasn't just a walk, it was a performance. Arthur was a proud man, perhaps too proud to let anyone see him doing something as simple as feeding birds. Or maybe, he was a shy man, and the quiet ritual was something just for them. But his wife, she loved the birds. So he played his part. He carried the bag through town, drawing all the attention, all the whispers and rumors. He became the keeper of the town's mystery, a walking enigma. He was the decoy. He took on the public role, the performance, so she could have her private, peaceful moment. He created a spectacle to protect her solitude. He wrapped her simple, quiet joy in a layer of public mystery. His walk across the bridge, his rest under the triet was all a carefully timed act, designed to deliver the bag to her at just the right moment so she could slip away unnoticed to her sanctuary in the woods. The truth was far more powerful than any of the rumors. It wasn't about money or lost loves in the way we imagined. It was about a love that was present, a quiet, profound partnership. It was a story of a man who created a town-wide mystery, who became a local legend, all to protect his wife's simple happiness. He didn't carry food, or money, or old memories in that bag. He carried an act of love, an invisible, everyday act of devotion, folded neatly inside a plain brown paper bag. And that, I realized, was the greatest treasure of all. I never told anyone the secret. Some stories are too beautiful to be explained. They are better left to wonder. The town can keep its rumors, and I will keep the truth. The image of a man holding a simple paper bag, not as a mystery, but as a promise to the woman he loves. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. It was one of those biting cold evenings. The kind where the wind feels like it's slicing right through your clothes, and the sky is just this endless, depressing shade of gray. This is the story of a man, and the shopkeeper who decided, for reasons he couldn't quite explain, to follow him. The man walked with a deliberate slowness, his steps heavy, his breathing labored. The shopkeeper, trailing at a respectful distance, could see that age had etched its story onto him. Every mile seemed to be carved into his posture, a testament to a long and likely arduous journey. He was clearly tired, the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. But there was something else there, something more powerful. A quiet determination burned in his eyes, a fire that overshadowed the weariness in his body. He just kept going, one foot in front of the other, as if pulled by an invisible string. The shopkeeper followed him down long winding roads, past houses with warm lights glowing in their windows, past the laughter of families spilling out onto the streets. But the man seemed oblivious to it all. His focus was singular, fixed on the path ahead. The journey stretched on, seemingly forever, until they reached the very edge of town, where the paved streets gave way to a dirt track. And there, at the end of this long, lonely road, stood a small, unassuming building. It was quiet, isolated, and had the air of a place almost entirely forgotten by the world. Curiosity now gnawing at him, the shopkeeper watched as the old man approached the building. It was a humble, single-story structure, its paint peeling, its windows dark. It looked like it hadn't seen a visitor in years. The man paused at the wooden door, his hand hovering over the knob for a moment, as if gathering his strength, or perhaps his courage. He took a deep breath, the cold air fogging around his face, and then, he pushed the door open and disappeared inside. The shopkeeper waited. 1 minute turned into 5, then 10. The wind howled, and the sky grew darker. What could possibly be in that desolate place? What drove this old, tired man to walk so far, with such unwavering resolve? Unable to contain his curiosity any longer, the shopkeeper crept closer to the building. He peered through a dusty, grimy window, trying to make out what was happening inside. The interior was sparse, almost empty. A few wooden chairs were scattered around, and a single dim light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting long, dancing shadows. In the center of the room, the old man was on his knees, but he wasn't alone. Gathered around him was a small group of stray cats and dogs, thin, shivering, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. The man was carefully unpacking a large, worn-out bag. From it, he pulled out containers of food and bowls of fresh water. He moved slowly, his tired joints protesting with every motion, but his hands were gentle and steady. He spoke to them in a low, soothing voice, murmuring words of comfort as he set down the food. The animals, hesitant at first, slowly crept forward. A scruffy dog with a matted coat, a calico cat with one torn ear, a tiny kitten that could barely stand. One by one they began to eat, their desperate hunger finally being sated. The shopkeeper's heart clenched. He watched, mesmerized, as the old man tended to each animal. He stroked the dog's head. He gently cleaned a wound on the cat's leg. He wrapped the tiny kitten in a piece of his own worn scarf to keep it warm. There was no grand gesture, no audience, no expectation of reward. There was only pure, unadulterated kindness. This was his routine. This was his purpose. Every day, regardless of the weather, regardless of his own exhaustion, he made this long journey to care for the forgotten, the abandoned, the unloved. A profound sense of shame and admiration washed over the shopkeeper. He had judged this man by his slow steps and tired appearance, never imagining the strength and compassion that lay beneath. This wasn't a story of weakness. It was a story of incredible strength. The strength to care when no one else does. The strength to show up, day after day, for those who have nothing and no one. The shopkeeper quietly backed away from the window, his own problems and worries seeming so small and insignificant in that moment. He walked back towards the town. The image of the old man and his flock of strays burned into his mind. He didn't just see an old man anymore. He saw a hero, a silent guardian, whose love and dedication created a small, warm sanctuary in a cold, indifferent world. The next day, the shopkeeper returned, but this time he didn't follow. He walked alongside the old man, his own arms laden with bags of pet food, warm blankets, and medicine. The old man looked at him, a silent question in his weary eyes. The shopkeeper just smiled. From that day on, the long, lonely walk was a little less lonely, and the small, forgotten building at the end of the road became a little brighter, a little warmer. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the greatest acts of kindness happen in the quietest of places, performed by the most unassuming of people. It shows us that you don't need a grand stage to make a difference. All you need is a compassionate heart and the will to act on it. This story isn't just about one man's kindness to animals. It's about the ripple effect of that kindness. How one person's quiet dedication can inspire another and another, creating a chain of compassion that can truly change the world, one small, forgotten corner at a time. Think about the forgotten places in your own community. Think about the silent heroes who might be working unseen to make things a little better. Maybe this story will inspire you to look a little closer, to offer a helping hand, or simply to acknowledge the quiet acts of goodness happening all around us. Because every act of kindness, no matter how small, sends a ripple of hope out into the world. It's a light that can cut through even the darkest, coldest of nights. Thank you so much for joining me for this story today. If it touched your heart, please consider sharing it with someone who might need a little dose of inspiration. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the quiet heroes among us. See you next time. In the heart of the city, tucked away from the bustling streets, stood a building unlike any other. It wasn't a towering skyscraper or a trendy cafe. It was a place of quiet dignity, a care center where the days moved at a slower, more deliberate pace. Inside, the air hummed with the soft, rhythmic sounds of life-sustaining machines. A constant, gentle pulse in the background of many lives. Near a window, where the morning light streamed in, lay a woman. Her eyes, once a vibrant reflection of the world, were now clouded over. A window to a world seen only in memory. She couldn't see the light dancing on the floor, but perhaps she could feel its warmth on her skin. A man walked down the polished hallway, his footsteps soft but purposeful. He carried a small, crinkled paper bag, the kind you get from a local bakery. He entered her room, the scent of fresh bread momentarily cutting through the sterile air. He approached her bed, his movements slow and careful, as if not to disturb the stillness. He placed the bag on the bedside table and reached for her hand. It was frail, but warm. He held it gently between his own, his thumb stroking the back of her hand in a familiar, comforting rhythm. She didn't speak. The ability had been stolen from her, a silent thief in the night. She couldn't form the words to greet him, to ask about his day, to tell him she was glad he was there, but her presence was enough. Her quiet breathing was a language all its own. The man leaned in close, his voice a low, soothing whisper that was meant only for her. He started to talk, painting pictures with his words, bringing the outside world into this quiet room. He told her about the drive over, about the ridiculous traffic on the bridge, and how a flock of seagulls had audaciously tried to steal a sandwich from a tourist. He described the sky, a brilliant, cloudless blue, the kind they both used to love on their long walks by the coast. He talked about the old oak tree in their neighborhood, how its leaves were just beginning to turn a fiery shade of orange and red. He spoke of small, everyday things, weaving them into a tapestry of life happening just beyond her window. His stories weren't just about the present. He delved deep into the well of their shared past, pulling out memories like precious jewels. Remember that time we tried to bake a cake for your mother's birthday? He chuckled softly. We used salt instead of sugar. It was the most disgusting, yet hilarious thing we ever made. Your mother, bless her heart, pretended to love it. He paused, squeezing her hand a little tighter. You laughed so hard you cried. A faint, almost imperceptible smile graced her lips. A flicker of recognition, a ghost of a shared joy. It was a sign, a beautiful, heart-wrenching sign that she was still there, listening. He opened the paper bag, and the warm, sweet scent of a cinnamon roll filled the air. "I brought you something," he whispered. "From that little bakery on Maple Street. I know it was always your favorite." He broke off a tiny piece, though he knew she couldn't eat it. It was the gesture, the memory, the continuation of a ritual they had shared for decades. The scent was a trigger, a key to a locked room in her mind. He spoke of the times they'd sit on a park bench, sharing one of these very treats, watching the world go by, planning their future. A future that looked so different from this present moment. He didn't just talk about the happy times. He spoke of the struggles, the arguments, the moments of doubt. He talked about them not with regret, but with a sense of profound gratitude. "Even our fights," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "they were part of our story. They showed we cared enough to disagree, to push each other." He was recounting their life, not just for her, but for himself. He was reaffirming their bond, a bond that transcended sight, speech, and even the cruel hand of illness. He was her anchor to the world, her living memory. He told her about their children, how their son had just gotten a promotion at work, and how their daughter's little girl had said her first word. She said Dada. He smiled. Of course she did. But her second word, I'm convinced, will be Nana. He was building a bridge from her quiet room to the vibrant, ongoing lives of the family they had built together. He was reminding her of her legacy, of the love that continued to grow and flourish because of her. He read to her, not from a book, but from old letters they had written to each other when they were young and separated by distance. His voice trembled as he read his own youthful, passionate words, and her heartfelt, witty replies. It was like listening to two different people, two young souls full of dreams and uncertainties, who had no idea of the long, winding road that lay ahead of them. He was reading their origin story, the very foundation upon which their entire life was built. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, his voice grew softer. The stories became simpler. He just talked about nothing and everything. About the feel of the cool side of the pillow, the sound of rain on the roof, the taste of a perfect cup of tea. He was filling the silence, not because it was empty, but because he wanted to fill it with his love, his presence, his unwavering devotion. Before he left, he leaned in and kissed her forehead. A long, lingering kiss. "I'll be back tomorrow," he promised. "I have a new story for you, about a mischievous squirrel and a bag of stolen nuts." Her faint smile returned, a quiet acknowledgement, a silent "I'll be waiting." He took one last look at her, the woman who was the love of his life, lying there in the fading light. He saw not the illness, not the limitations, but the soul he had known and cherished for a lifetime. As he walked out of the room, and down the quiet hall, he felt a profound sense of purpose. This was his most important role now. He was her storyteller, her memory keeper, her connection to a world she could no longer see or speak to. And in her faint smiles, in the gentle squeeze of her hand that he sometimes imagined, he found his own reason to keep going. Their love story wasn't over. It had simply entered a new chapter, one written not in grand gestures, but in quiet whispers, shared sense, and the steadfast promise of "I'll be back tomorrow." Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please consider sharing it. It's a reminder that true love speaks a language all its own. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the human heart. See you next time. The paper bag was still warm, the smell of her favorite meal seeping through the thin brown paper. He held it carefully, a small offering after a long journey. It had been freshly bought, paid for with the last few dollars he had, but the real cost was measured in steps, not cents. He couldn't afford transportation, not even the bus fare that seemed like a small fortune to him. He couldn't afford much at all, really. The rent was always a tightrope walk, and fancy dinners were a forgotten dream, but he had two strong legs. He could walk, and so he did. He walked those 20 miles, a 10-mile journey there, and a 10-mile journey back, every single day. He did it so she would never have to spend a single day in that sterile white room without seeing his face, without feeling his presence. He wanted her to know, in the deepest part of her soul, that she was not alone. The journey started before the sun had fully risen, his worn-out shoes hitting the pavement in a steady, rhythmic beat. He knew every crack in the sidewalk, every store that was just opening its doors, every dog that barked from behind a fence. The city woke up around him as he walked, a silent witness to his daily pilgrimage. The first few miles were always the easiest. His mind would be full of her smile, of the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed. He'd plan what he would say, little stories to share about his day, anything to bring a piece of the outside world into her confined space. But as the miles stretched on, his body would start to protest. His legs would ache, his back would stiffen, and on hot days, sweat would pour down his face, stinging his eyes. On cold days, the wind would whip through his thin jacket, chilling him to the bone. Still, he walked. When he finally arrived at the hospital, he would take a moment outside the main entrance to compose himself. He'd smooth down his hair, wipe the sweat from his brow, and take a deep, steadying breath. He never wanted her to see the exhaustion, He wanted to be her strength, her constant, her rock. He wanted his smile to be the first thing she saw, not the fatigue etched into his face. He walked into the gleaming lobby, the scent of antiseptic, a sharp contrast to the savory aroma wafting from the paper bag in his hand. The nurses at the station had grown accustomed to his daily arrival. They'd see him coming down the long hallway, a familiar, determined figure. They would whisper among themselves, their voices a mixture of awe and pity. He comes every day, one would say to a newer colleague. Every single day, no matter the weather. And it was true. Rain, blistering heat, city-stopping snowstorms. Nothing stopped him. He'd arrive drenched but smiling, or shivering but with a warmth in his eyes that defied the cold. One particularly brutal summer day, the heat was suffocating. The asphalt seemed to melt under his feet, and the air was thick and heavy, making every breath a struggle. People stayed indoors, huddled around their air conditioners. But he was out there, walking. He had wrapped the food container in an old towel to keep it warm, his shirt soaked through with sweat within the first hour. He felt dizzy at times, his vision blurring at the edges. But the image of her face, pale against the hospital pillows, pushed him forward. He had to get to her. Another time, a sudden, violent thunderstorm had ambushed the city. Rain came down in blinding sheets, and the wind howled like a wounded animal. The streets flooded, and traffic came to a standstill. He didn't have a proper raincoat, just a thin jacket that was useless against the deluge. He pulled the hood over his head and hunched his shoulders, protecting the precious cargo in his arms as best he could. He arrived looking like he had jumped into a swimming pool, water squelching in his shoes with every step. The nurse at the desk just shook her head in disbelief, handing him a towel without a word. He just smiled, thanked her, and continued on his way to her room, leaving a trail of water behind him. He'd enter her room quietly, always with that same gentle smile. "I'm here," he'd say softly, and her eyes would light up, a beacon in the dim room. That single moment made every aching muscle, every drop of sweat, every shiver from the cold completely worth it. He would sit by her bed, unpack the food, and watch her eat. He didn't talk much about his journey. He'd just talk about her, about their future, about the little garden they would one day have. He'd hold her hand, his calloused palm a stark contrast to her soft, frail one. He never saw his daily walk as a sacrifice. To him, it was just what you do for the person you love. It was a simple equation. She needed him, and he would be there. The distance, the weather, the exhaustion, they were just minor details, insignificant variables in the grand formula of his devotion. Because when you truly love someone, the obstacles that stand in your way cease to be obstacles. They become part of the journey. For him, love made the miles disappear. Each step was a testament to his commitment, a silent vow whispered onto the pavement. It wasn't about the food in the bag, it was about the love that carried it there. And that love was a force more powerful than any storm, more enduring than any distance. It was a love that walked 20 miles, day after day, without ever counting the cost. Have you ever wondered what true love looks like? Is it grand gestures, expensive gifts, or poetic declarations? Sometimes the most profound love stories are the quietest ones, the ones lived out in everyday actions, far from the public eye. Today, I want to share a story with you that started just like that, a simple, daily act of devotion that, by a twist of fate, captured the hearts of millions. It's the story of a man, his unwavering commitment, and the long road he traveled every single day for the love of his life. This story begins with Luther Younger, an 88-year-old man from Rochester, New York. For Luther, every day started with a purpose. It wasn't about leisurely strolls in the park or enjoying a quiet retirement. His purpose had a name, Waverly. Waverly was his wife, his partner of over 50 years, his everything. But their life together had taken a difficult turn. Waverly had been diagnosed with brain cancer in 2009 and was paralyzed. For years, she had been in and out of the hospital, eventually needing round-the-clock care in a facility. Luther could have visited when it was convenient, maybe a few times a week. But that wasn't his way. For him, being apart from her was unimaginable. He had made a promise to be with her in sickness and in health, and he intended to keep it. So, every single day, rain or shine, heat wave or blizzard, Luther would set out on a journey, a long journey. He would walk from his home to the hospital to be by Waverly's side. How far, you ask? 6 miles. 6 miles there, and 6 miles back. That's a 12-mile round trip, every single day. For many of us, a 12-mile walk would be a significant physical feat, something we'd train for. For Luther, it was just what he had to do. He didn't see it as a burden or a chore. He saw it as his duty, his privilege, to be with the woman he called his cup of tea. He'd say, "She's my wife. I'm supposed to be with her. It's my job." His journey was a testament to his resilience. The route was long and often challenging. He'd walk along busy roads, through changing seasons, sometimes in scorching summer heat that would make you sweat just standing still, and other times through the brutal, freezing winters of upstate New York. People who saw him walking often didn't know his story. They just saw an elderly man, walking with a steady, determined pace. He'd often get offered rides by well-meaning strangers, but he usually declined. He'd explained that he needed the exercise, that the walk was part of his routine, but there was more to it. The walk was his time to think, to prepare himself for the day ahead, and perhaps, to feel a little closer to Waverly with every step. When he arrived at the hospital, his day was just beginning. He wasn't just a visitor who sat quietly in a chair. He was her caregiver, her constant companion. He would help feed her, talk to her, hold her hand, and just be present. He believed that his presence, his touch, his voice, were a form of medicine that no doctor could prescribe. He'd sit with her for hours, sharing stories of their life together, reminding her of the love that had bound them for half a century. The hospital staff grew to know him well. They saw his unwavering dedication, the light in his eyes when he looked at Waverly, and the gentle way he cared for her. He became a fixture at the hospital, a living example of what it means to love someone unconditionally. Then one day, something happened that changed everything. A nurse, moved by his daily pilgrimage, decided to do something. As she saw Luther walking through the morning fog, a solitary figure on a long road, she took a picture. It was a simple, unassuming photo, but she paired it with a powerful caption. He walks 20 miles every day to see someone he loves. Now, the distance was a bit off. It was closer to 12 miles, but the sentiment was what mattered. She posted it online, probably not thinking much of it, but the internet has a way of finding stories that need to be told. Within hours, the post went viral. It was shared thousands, then hundreds of thousands of times. People from all over the world were captivated. In a world often filled with negativity and fleeting connections, here was a story of pure, steadfast love. It was a story about loyalty, about commitment that doesn't fade with age or hardship. It was simple, yet incredibly powerful. A man, walking for miles, just to be with the woman he loves. Luther, meanwhile, was completely unaware of his newfound fame. He didn't have social media. He wasn't trying to become an inspiration, he was just trying to get to Waverly. The story reached local news, then national news. Reporters wanted to interview him. People wanted to help. A GoFundMe was started to help with Waverly's medical bills and to maybe help Luther with his transportation. The fund quickly surpassed its goal, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars from strangers who were touched by his story. They weren't just donating money. They were affirming that love like Luther's still exists and that it matters. When Luther was finally told about the outpouring of support, he was stunned. He was a humble man, and he couldn't quite understand why his daily routine was so interesting to others. He'd say, "I'm just a man in love with his wife." The community rallied around him. People offered him rides, which he began to accept more often, saving his energy for Waverly. A local car dealership even gifted him a car. But even with a car, he'd often still choose to walk parts of the way. The walk had become a part of him, a ritual that defined his days. The money raised provided a huge relief, allowing the family to focus on Waverly's care without the constant stress of financial burdens. It was a beautiful example of a community, and indeed the world, coming together to support a man who had shown them the true meaning of devotion. Sadly, Waverly passed away a few months after the story went viral. Luther was by her side, just as he had been every day. He was heartbroken, of course. The center of his world was gone, but he was also at peace. He had fulfilled his promise. He had been there for her, right until the very end. He had no regrets. He had given her all the love he had, every single day. His journey to the hospital may have ended, but his love for her never would. Luther Younger's story isn't just a viral moment. It's a profound lesson. It teaches us that love isn't about grand, public displays, but about the small, consistent acts of service we do for one another. It's about showing up, day after day, especially when it's hard. It's a reminder that the most powerful commitments are the ones we make in our hearts and live out with our feet. Luther's daily walk was a prayer, a poem, a love song written in footsteps on the pavement. And it's a story that will continue to inspire anyone who hears it, reminding us of the incredible power of a love that is willing to go the distance. Thank you so much for watching and for letting me share this incredible story with you. If it moved you as much as it moved me, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that warm the heart. Until next time, take care. That Tuesday morning felt just like any other. The sun was just starting to peek over the horizon, casting a pale, gentle light over the quiet streets. I got up, pulled on my worn-out shoes, the ones with soles so thin I could feel every pebble on the pavement, and started my long walk to the care center. The air was crisp, and my breath plumed in front of me. Each step was a familiar ache, a rhythm I had come to know over years of this daily pilgrimage. It was a journey of love, a journey to see my wife, and every single step, no matter how painful, was worth it. Little did I know, this wasn't going to be just another Tuesday. This was the day that everything, absolutely everything, was about to change. As I approached the final stretch, my legs burning with the familiar fatigue, I noticed something unusual. There, standing near the entrance of the care center, was a small crowd of people. This was odd. It was too early for most visitors, and they weren't the usual staff members I'd nod to every morning. My first thought was that something was wrong. My heart started to pound in my chest, a cold wave of anxiety washing over me. I picked up my pace. my tired legs protesting as I hurried toward the building, my mind racing through 100 different worst-case scenarios. I had to know what was happening. I had to make sure my wife was okay. When I finally reached the entrance, breathless and leaning against the wall to catch my breath, the group turned towards me. They weren't angry or panicked. Instead, their faces held expressions I couldn't quite decipher, a mixture of sympathy, warmth, and something that looked like anticipation. A woman with kind eyes stepped forward, a gentle smile on her face. "Are you the man who walks here every day to see his wife?" she asked softly. I nodded, still confused, my heart still thumping against my ribs. What was this all about? Was I in some kind of trouble? I braced myself, unsure of what to expect from these strangers who had gathered here so early in the morning. Then, one by one, they started to show me what they were holding. A man held up a brand new pair of sturdy walking shoes, the kind with thick, cushioned soles that looked like they could conquer mountains. Another person had a warm, insulated jacket, perfect for the coming winter. Someone else held out bags filled with groceries, fresh bread, fruits, and warm meals packed in containers. The first woman who spoke to me then held up a giant card. It was covered in signatures, hundreds of them, with messages of support and encouragement written in every available space. My eyes scanned the words. "You're an inspiration. We're with you. Your love is beautiful." I was completely overwhelmed. I just stood there, speechless, looking from their smiling faces to the incredible gifts they had brought. How did you know?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. The woman explained that someone had seen me on my long walk day after day. They had shared my story online, just a small post about a husband's devotion. They never expected what happened next. The story spread like wildfire. It touched people, not just in our town, but all over the country, all over the world. These people standing in front of me were just a few of the many who had been moved by my daily journey. They wanted to help. They wanted me to know that I wasn't walking alone. Tears started to well up in my eyes, blurring the faces of the kind strangers around me. For so long, my world had been small. Just me, my wife, and the long road that connected us. I never thought anyone noticed. I never asked for anything. To see this outpouring of kindness, this incredible wave of support from people I had never met, was more than my heart could handle. I felt a mix of gratitude, disbelief, and a profound sense of connection to all these people. It was as if the lonely path I walked every day had suddenly opened up into a wide, welcoming highway filled with friends. The weight I'd been carrying on my shoulders for years suddenly felt a little bit lighter, but the surprises weren't over. Just as I was trying to process everything, a man in a polo shirt with a local charity's logo on it stepped forward. He introduced himself and explained that his organization had also heard my story. He said, "Your dedication is a testament to true love, and we want to make sure you can continue to see your wife without enduring such hardship." He then handed me a small, laminated card. He explained that their charity had arranged for a free daily car service to pick me up from my home and take me to the care center, and then back home again, every single day, for as long as I needed it. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just stared at the card in my hand. No more walking, no more aching feet and tired legs. No more battling the wind and the rain and the snow. The thought was so staggering, so completely life-altering, that I couldn't wrap my head around it. The daily walk had become such a fundamental part of my existence, a symbol of my love and commitment. To suddenly have that burden lifted was an incredible gift, but it was also a lot to take in. I looked up at the man from the charity, then at all the other faces in the crowd, their eyes shining with kindness. I finally found my voice, and through tears, I said the only words that I could think of: "Thank you." From the bottom of my heart. Thank you all. That day, I didn't walk home. I rode in the back of a comfortable car, holding a new pair of shoes, a warm jacket, and a heart overflowing with a gratitude so immense it felt like it could burst. Looking out the window at the familiar streets, the very same path I had walked just hours before, it felt like I was seeing them for the first time. The world hadn't just learned my story, it had reached out and changed it forever. My love for my wife was the flame that kept me going, but the kindness of strangers was the fuel that turned it into a blazing fire, warming not just my life, but the hearts of so many others. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that I would never, ever walk alone again. This story is a powerful reminder that we are all connected, and that small acts of observation can lead to incredible movements of compassion. You never know whose life you might touch just by paying attention. Have you ever heard a love story so powerful it could bring a nation to its knees? This is one of those stories. It's about a man, a woman, and a promise that spanned 20 miles every single day. Our story begins with Larry Swilling. Every morning, he would wake up, lace up his shoes, and begin a 10-mile walk to the nursing home where his wife, Jimmy Sue, lived. She was suffering from a debilitating illness, and Larry had lost his driver's license. But that didn't matter. He was determined to be by her side, no matter what. So, he walked. 10 miles there, and 10 miles back. Every single day, rain or shine, 4 months. He'd arrive, hold her hand, talk to her, and simply be present. He was her constant, her rock, even as her memory faded. This simple act of devotion didn't go unnoticed. People in their town started seeing him, this lone figure walking with purpose. They learned his story, and they were deeply moved. Soon, his daily pilgrimage became a local legend. Strangers would stop to offer him rides, give him water, or just to say a few words of encouragement. The community rallied around him. A local news station picked up the story, and then it went viral. Suddenly, Larry and Jimmy Sue's private love story became a national inspiration. People from all over the country sent letters, donations, and messages of support. They even helped him get a car so he wouldn't have to walk anymore. One day, as he sat by Jimmy Sue's bed, he held her hand just like always, but this time, he leaned in and whispered, "They know our story." A single tear traced a path down her cheek. It was a small sign, but it meant the world. It was as if, in that moment, she understood the incredible love that surrounded them. A few days later, with Larry holding her hand, Jimmy Sue passed away peacefully. The world mourned with him. The man who walked 20 miles for love was now walking a new path, one of grief. But even after she was gone, he'd still sometimes walk that same road. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because for Larry, those 20 miles were never just a distance. They were a testament to a love that never wavered and a promise he never broke. It's a powerful reminder that true love isn't about grand gestures, but about the steps we're willing to take for each other, day after day. Thanks for watching.